for the first question, just to get established, how do I pronounce your name, and what are your pronouns?
Um, he, him. Many people call me Noppers. I also accept Noppers, but usually it doesn't matter. So you can call me whatever. Usually.
I'm curious about this avatar specifically. What's the story behind like this current avatar you're wearing, and how does it relate to your identity? Do you um I've heard of stuff like the Prometheus effect, where you can
Mhm.
gain different things from the avatars you're wearing and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm
Oh,
curious about all that, about the backstory, and I guess the the lore and all that.
I've heard people with like um, phantom sense or even like tail sense or something like that. I don't have anything like that. I'll hyper focus on Avatar for about a year, and I'm just gonna wear it constantly. And I wear stuff that I prefer. So, for example, it's usually IK related or tracking based. I like avatars that track well for me. If it tracks better than what I had, I would just gravitate towards that. I would use it more. This one is I've been working on this avatar since last November. Um, After the release of my last avatar, the goal is to have better tracking and better proportions. So what I like about it is mostly how the body landmarks roughly matches mine. So like the shoulder, the belly button area, the ribs, the hip, the knee. Right now it's in healed mode, so and the foot would be down here. So it
Okay.
matches my proportion. A lot of people prefer longer legs aesthetically, but I think you can compensate for that using heels. So you get a little. That's basically how regular humans compensate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's why heels exist.
Yeah, yeah. I was curious about that because I like how you could describe it as landmarks for like the body. So it's like common areas. You'd say that they're like rec- how do you, I guess, recognize the landmark, like for avatars and bodies, for like, I guess, between realities, from like physical reality to virtual reality? It's like a common, you say, a common area.
Hmm. Yeah, so everybody has different fat distributions. Everybody has different musculatures. Common landmarks that I use are areas in your body where there's not a lot of fat typically. So, for example, your collarbones, um, the shoulder bone area, typically where your muscles meet. Um, Belly button can change locations. I just wanted to match my belly button location exactly. The hip bone area, the protrusion in your hip bone, this doesn't have a lot of fat as far as I know. The other is the rib area. It doesn't have a lot of fat. The knee, obviously, and your foot. The one of the tests I used was, can I do heel toe, and have them touch and match and be roughly the same. So that was a kind of like when I go take my shoes off, can I do that? Are my steps accurate? And that's a huge tell.
Kind of moving on to more of a like self-care. I'm curious about as with all the trackers, and you said you have like 11 on, is that right?
Currently I turn some off because when I
Oh,
hit
that's right.
11, I lose some tracking because I think everybody has different issues with tracking. A lot of people have drifts. I think my issue is related to my USB controller. So there could be signal issues, it could be USB controller issues, it could be the hardware itself, um, it could be the dongles. I bought like
uh,
a gigantic spider dongle. It works better, but it doesn't work perfectly.
I guess with more trackers to take like more time, or how do you plan for that?
I have like a charging location. I typically have all my trackers and controllers charged. Going onto VR with 3-point tracking, minimal time. It's route by this point. So like less than a minute, I can just put them on, get on VR, and then once out, I just take them off, plug them back in. It's minimal time. For full trackers, I have to be a little bit more strategic because I typically don't have my tracker secured to some of the straps. My elbow straps is losing its Velcro, so it's like a little annoying to just like, okay, just to make sure they're fixed tightly. The other part is with all the drifts happening, occasionally I have to like disable some of the trackers to make sure like the tracking is stable. I think those are most of the stuff I have to account for when putting on like 11 point. The other part is occasionally I'll put on the full suite, mainly because dancing in like full body tracking is really nice. You get to see more minute movements, like little chest motion. Right now I have like, oh, did I have chest tracker on? Apparently it's off. You end up with more trackers on, it's your motion is more accurate and it's more interesting. You get to do more, and it's quite different from just like 3-point. It feels better with more, but only if it works perfectly. When it doesn't work perfectly, you know, why have them?
Yeah, that makes sense too. It's different here because I'll turn my camera around so I can kind of see what I'm doing, because I have my 3-point on, I have my leg and my hip on, but yeah, I decided to sit down for a little bit, and it's like yeah, it's okay, but whenever I try to do stuff with my arm, I have my Quest 3 on, and it's like let's just start moving my arms and shoulders, and kind of, it's a little quirky sometimes, and it's not always especially when I want to twist my arm, it's it's not as accurate. So yeah, speaking of materials, I noticed, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I've heard like people who are conversationalists, they enjoy having a chest tracker for like more accurate torso movement, because they're having a conversation, they may shift their body around a little, look around, for more stable chest. So it's something that appeals to people who are having conversation or one-on-one discussions with people. Maybe that's something you can try at some point. See if that improves your own experience.
As a dancer, do you have and referring to the wear and tear part, do you use any extra materials or products like athletic tape or anything like that, or routines to maintain your physical health in game, and does how you look in VR matter to you whenever you're doing this, or what do you do?
So I dance on carpeted floor. I don't wear shoes. I wear socks when I dance. The reason why I wear socks is to reduce friction burn and to decrease friction. So I can slide around a little bit better. Right now I have a 2-inch gymnastic, or 3 2-inch gymnastic mats in a 2x2 square, 2x2 meters. This lets me do like, practice handstands a little bit safer, do different activities a little bit safer. I can move around. I know where I am based on if I'm on the cushion or not. That's quite important, knowing where you are at all times. When I put on knee trackers, I'll need a knee pad so I don't have to secure the straps as tightly, so I don't cut off circulation. If you have, when I was like dancing a lot more with on carpet, friction burn was a concern. Like, make sure you use lotion so you don't dry out. That's the basics. The other is sweat. If you sweat a lot, you may need additional gasket cover. You may need a cloth to wipe your face, wipe away the sweat so you're not damaging your headset, or just like wearing sweaty gasket all the time. So you might need to have like a hot swappable system.
What inspires you to work on avatars for, for months at a time? I know you referenced you've been working on this one since like almost like last year, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious about
I
that.
I think it's personal obsession. I'm always looking for avatars that tracks better. When I see things I don't like about the avatar, it kind of like grows over time. At some point, I just like can't really tolerate too much, or sometimes you have to find like peace with it. It's just like, oh, it'll never be perfect. But some stuff I know I can improve on, so I will try to find ways around it. Like even with like this body, there's still plenty of things I want to improve on, like possibly testing out better spine movements, viewable positions, like something I might want to like experiment on and adjust. Better knee. So I'm just like still thinking on these things, better fizbo movements, possibly correcting like weight painting. Maybe there's like ways of simplifying things. I think that's quite fascinating. The downside is that the testing lifecycle is quite tedious. So you have to go from Blender to Unity, puts on VR for testing, and what works for 3-point tracking might not work for 11-point. So 11-point, there could be like additional spine movements. So with chest tracker, different things, you might notice different issues.
Hmm.
So important part is you have to keep on using all these changes to notice all these like details. There's no test suite as far as I know that checks all these edge cases. It's about you using the avatar and see how you feel about it over time.
For a
Mm-hmm.
beginner with three trackers, say I guess the default would be like a hip tracker and two foot trackers. I guess what is the best place for foot trackers, and is it ankles or directly on the foot, or
Mm-hmm.
does that vary depending on the purpose?
Yeah, if you're on the ground a lot, having your trackers on the ankle can provide stability. So because your foot is not, rotating and bending, your ankle is pretty stable, so you're not worried about like random movements. Putting it on your ankle can work, but for most people, putting it on your foot is probably better. So now you can do tiptoes, you can, move your foot around, and just like the basic flat foot um, things that you might do on VR.
How much of figuring out tracker placement and I guess the trade-offs does it come from experience, or how does a newcomer find what works for their avatar? Since I know correct can vary sometimes.
Mm. So when I started off, it was pretty basic. So my hip tracker is on the front of my hip, or essentially waist. My foot tracker is just on the top of my foot, so I can move them around. It's pretty typical, but for people dancing, it can be different. So a lot of dancers, because of occlusion, they put their trackers on the side or the back for additional hip sway, as well as to avoid occlusion. For the foot area, if they're wearing heels, they don't want foot movements because heels could look broken when they overextend or move around. Or if they're doing groundwork, so they're just like doing ground like uh, ground-based dancing, then they may move trackers to their ankle. It's like for they're trying to avoid any movement when they're doing their poses.
Can VRChat software handle all the different tracker placements, or From your experience, how
Mm,
does it handle alternations and like tracker placements for different activities like yoga or dance and the various things you
I
mentioned there?
I don't think VR chats or I don't think trackers can handle yoga really well, especially Lighthouse, because let's say you do like a contortion, right? Even when I do exercise or like let's say stretching, that alone will occlude my trackers a lot. I use Lighthouse base, so line of sight is very important. I have my tracker on my hip over here, so if I try to turn to the side and occlude my hip is just gonna fly off. So there's no like, there's always some sort of position where your tracker has issue. I think IMU base tracker or new flex pose might avoid occlusion issues. So it's just, right now the limitation is there. Hopefully it won't be in the future.
This next question here is kind of getting into a different category, kind of related to IK, which kind of want to back up there too a little bit. Can you just
Mm,
for newcomers, can you explain what IK means and what that is for
mm.
avatars, and I guess how that helps for tracking?
Okay. So by default, with a headset, you have the game knows where your head position is. It knows where your controller positions are. If you have trackers, it'll know where your tracker positions are. But they need to understand what's happening in between everything. So let's say I have a hip tracker. It knows where my head is, but it needs to figure out my neck, my chest, my spine, everything in between. Similar case for my shoulder, right? My shoulder, they know where the controllers are. They have to figure out where my shoulder is. In this case, I'm wearing elbow trackers, but without it, it needs to figure out where my elbows are as well. So that's where IK comes in.
What calibration process and settings do you recommend for full body tracking users, beginners just getting started out? And how does that help their IK and stuff?
Um, I recommend giving VRChat's height-based tracking a try. You get to use your IRL height. You don't have to worry too much about any specific hacks. You just do the default setting. If the avatar tracks well for you, then great. Um, there are additional tools that you can do, but a lot of them involves per avatar adjustments. I think it's probably easier that you just look around, find an avatar that tracks well for you and appeals to you, and then try to stick with default settings so things are consistent. You don't have to think too much about what works and what doesn't work. And you know, and ultimately, if you don't notice any issue, that's even better. Like, tracking is only an issue if it's like an issue to you. So whatever makes you happy.
I'm remembering our conversation earlier about locking, which I
Mm.
thought was a fairly new to me. I didn't even
Mm.
notice that setting. So, can you explain what locking is for VRChat avatar tracking, and um, can you explain
Mm.
which ones you personally use for and why you do?
Okay. So there are a few options. You can lock your calibration by the head, the hip, or both. When you lock the calibration by your head or tracking or IK by your head, um, your viewpoint is guaranteed to stick with your head no matter where you are. The rest of your body may adjust and move based on that. It may be slightly skewed or off. When you lock by hip, your hip is guaranteed to be where your trackers are. So the advantage of each is different and there are trade-offs. When you lock by head, your hip will be off, and for dancers that can impact, their movements quite a bit. their viewpoint being off isn't as big of a deal because their avatar and movements will look good. But for immersion, their view bow may be, let's say, at their mouth or neck, and that's not very immersive. Your perspective would be slightly skewed and off. So a lot of people would use lock by head when they're, seated, they're lying down, or they're watching something. For dancing, they would lock by hip. My personal preference is to lock both. The trade-off with lock both is that your spine and hip, or the area between your hip and head may collapse or crunch. So you may see some sort of compression depending on how the avatar is rigged. This may be more. This can go from not very extreme to very extreme. So
how does foot placement, especially the heels, influence the rest of the avatar IK and I guess the bone structure too?
So the foot placement plays into it plays into the full IK if you use height-based calibration. So the entire length of your avatar matters quite a bit. What you need is where your view bow position is, and the length between your view bow and your foot essentially dictates the scale that you see in VR. So let's say if I extend my foot bone further down below my avatar, then from my perspective, my hand would actually shrink. Everything that I see would shrink because now I'm technically taller. That's like a inherent issue when it comes to height. And that's why I prefer, when you rig your avatar, I prefer like flat foot because it matches your perspective a little bit better.
I'm curious, is IK, is it mostly humanoid centered, or are there options for non-humanoid avatar forms?
So I think the people behind Final IK did a talk during Virality, centered around tours. So there are many different body types, and there's like tours are people with like four legs essentially. So 2 in front, 2 in the back, basically centaurs. It's obviously not a humanoid proportion, so how people feel in it, I can't really speculate, but I would assume they prefer it over humanoid. I think there's a trade-off. So do you prefer the stylization, or do you prefer like perfectly matching your actual body? So there's always like a balance between, and whatever makes you feel good comes back, is important here, right? Like whatever makes people feel good, they'll gravitate towards that, and that's the trade-off, stylization or matching.
What is avatar rigging and what are bones in social VR? Let's kind of start there. I'm curious about those.
So most avatars on VRChat uses humanoid bones. You can have like smaller, like cute avatars that doesn't quite follow that. So you may see some avatars that, they have a head bone, but rest of the body is just like a floating thing. And if you move your head around, the body sort of floats and sways around. You don't have your hand, you don't have your legs. There are like fully humanoid avatars. That's what most people with like full body tracking uses. The basics is that you need your head, you need your shoulders, you need your upper arm, you need lower arm, the hand bones, the spine, the hip, obviously the chest bone, and then upper, lower, and foot and possibly toes. The toes, as far as I know, is for tiptoeing, so it detects your movements in Unity. That's the basic IK humanoid, but in addition to that, you may want to include like extra bones for fizz bone or for constraints, because the default IK bone is not enough to simulate human body deformation. So, for example, when you bend your elbow, you may lose volume around your elbow area because you only have 2 bones and the mesh may basically shrink on itself in this area unless you have enough support, or when you're doing a twisting motion using your wrist. In those cases, there are really only one solution, which is to add more bones. And with Unity, you can only have 4 bones, 4 bone weights per vertex. And that's like, it's just something that we have to consider. And the more bones you add, the more complicated your rig gets. And potentially it can impact, oh, now I need to fit clothing, and it can become more difficult to fit because now there's more bones, more things to consider. So you want to find like a balance between simple and good.
Speaking of that, and kind of getting into more of that, would you encourage people to get into rigging in their bones for their avatars, especially especially for beginners, or would you say that's only for folks who want to get more realistic detail in their avatar movement?
I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruits that people can try out. It's not too difficult. One caveat is that every time you make changes to bones in Blender and exporting it to Unity for overwrite, it may break the avatar in your scene. So you have to be very careful about it. There's a tool called Pumpkin, and I always call it Pumpkin, but I think it's Pumpkin avatar tools. You can basically copy all the settings and just like assets from one avatar and transfer it to a new FBX, which FBX is the model format. So once you make your bone update, you can transfer essentially you make a new copy of the avatar based on the new bone structure. And that's generally pretty safe. It's inherently a little bit more destructive than just like making minor mesh changes. So I would watch out for that, but definitely give it a try. There's a few low-hanging fruits, which is adding fizz bone is a lot of fun because it can now give your avatar additional sway. Like you can move your ears around. You can do cheeks, nose movement. There's the obvious boob physics. So there's a lot of play in this area. If you're not happy with your elbow, you can add twist bones and learn how to do constraints. All of those aren't too hard. They're all solvable and they're mostly straightforward. In terms of weight painting, they're also pretty straightforward. It's like very mechanical. You just make sure things go by gradients and loops and just slowly blend things together, and it's going to look pretty dang good. So I think we should probably introduce Renata's rig, because this is like the iconic thing.
Right.
Iconic rig. Let me do recalibrate first, so make sure everything is good. So this is Renata's public avatar. If you crawl around on the VRC Discord, you will see the reference image quite often. A lot of people refer to this armature as the basis of what a correct humanoid might look like. And you can tell, like, maybe my spine is not perfectly straight. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't have an X-ray with me. Right now I have 11 point on, and you can see like spine collapse or spine squish. This is because I use lock both. This is to compensate the distance between my hip and my view bone. So right now you can see the collapsing movement. And this is, I think, this avatar right now. Everything here is the humanoid rig. It's like how Unity visualizes like the human body, essentially. So you can tell that not every human bone is here. There is some limitations to it. You know, but it's enough to sell the effect. So if you want to do more, like for example, the elbow collapse, if I twist my arm, you will see the volume is lost slightly. So if you want to prevent that, you may have to play with the Unity muscle system, and you may have to add additional constraints to reduce collapse on your wrist as well. So there are things that you can extend upon this Unity humanoid, and typically the advice might not be to follow the human body exactly, because ultimately you're also playing with how VRChat interprets IK, how bones should behave, how things are tracked. It's a balance between like what works for VRChat and what is realistic in a human, as well as what looks nice.
Yeah, this is getting to more of the aesthetic section, and I'm just curious about your avatar and your avatar choices. So yeah, do you have issues with the avatar tracking, or are you mostly happy with the day-to-day? Can you explain more about how you get to a point where you're okay with it all?
Well, to other people observing, they might not see the same issues that I see. There are a few parts that I'm very proud of. So I've been struggling with elbow twist for a very long time. More recently, I found a better solution, which is to more realistically constrain your entire elbow movement, or basically your forearm twist, into your wrist. So this kind of mirrors with actual human bone twist, which most of the twisting motion comes from the pronation and sublimation of the forearm. So your elbow and upper arm doesn't really twist too much, but by default, Unity Humanoid will twist your elbow area as well as your upper arm area a little bit when you do your forearm twist. For this setup, you need a few twist bones in your forearm to slowly, gradually twist the mesh. There was a talk by the Guilty Gear developers. They have a 4-bone setup. In my case, I only use 3 bones due to Unity limitation. The more bones you have, the more tricky it is to weight pain. So you want to keep it minimal, just enough to sell the effect.
Okay.
In terms of other issues, knee is quite difficult. The groin and hip region is quite complex. So part of the knee, a lot of people do pretty convincing knee, but part of the issue with knee is for small bends, it'll look perfectly fine. But in VR full body tracking, what if we do like a deep squat? So your knee is now bending at a more extreme angle. Parts of your lower leg and may clip into your upper leg. It is quite it's quite difficult. I've seen like a really complex setup. I personally tried like a bunch of crazy setups that all has its like shortcomings. So it's something I'm still trying to figure out. I'll show you my current setup shortly.
Mhm.
Once we're in like the demo stage, then I can show you like what I
Yeah.
have, what I settled for right now.
Okay.
Um, the Another big topic are like fizbo movements. So how do you have convincing fizbo movements for different body parts? For the thigh area, something that I wanted is up and down motion as well as a twisting motion. So it sells like a stylized effect for jiggle, essentially.
What would your main advice be to avatar makers about building for full body tracking compatibility?
Mm, um, it depends on what they're trying to shoot for. Like, if they're doing from scratch, I think finding references would be a good start. So Fernada is what a lot of people, Fernada's public avatar is what a lot of people point at when they say, "Hey, I need a humanoid spine rig." That's like a very common, proven, is it a reference?
Mhm.
The other part is you gotta use the avatar enough and see like if there are any issues. Even if you find issues, you need to have like a standard methodology because you can fix one part of the avatar and break something else that you don't notice. Especially when it comes to like full body tracking. Like I can fix my I can move my view ball, but it's gonna break something else. It's going to change how my hand looks. If I move my view ball more forward, it's going to, when I look down, it's going to pull my neck and spine a little bit more. Um, my body is gonna feel like it's being pushed back a little bit. So, if I'm making contacts with my shoulder here, by moving my view ball forward, I'll be moving contact with something like further. My body would be further back, so I'll be making contact maybe with air. Um, so little things like that will add up. It's hard to say what's going to influence the body as soon as you make a critical adjustment like view ball or your height. So it's you have to play with it and you need to find like a stable and reliable method of testing for this. You can't test and just like immediately. You have to get a feel for it, try it out in VR definitely.
Do you have
Mhm.
any physical references when you are making avatars like this, or do you have more virtual references when you're making avatars like this with a style like this one?
I pull up a ton of references. There's like pictures on Twitter. There are humanoid anatomy references. There are models. There are clothing. There are color charts. There's like a bunch of tutorials I had to go through. Um, just like concept art from games, from like different media. Just pull everything together and basically like a mood chart or mood board and then try to figure out okay what's going to work together, what isn't going to work together, and then start drawing out like a concept. So I'm not an amazing artist, so my concept arts aren't that great, but it's like it's slowly like cement itself over time. Like for example in the beginning I don't even know, like when I started off the body I didn't even know it's going to be a cat.
Uh,
So like some people have like a design immediately, they go from it. I'm more based on like, oh, how does it feel? And then I change my mind. I didn't even know it's going to be like more Death Stranding vibes early on. I thought
mhm.
it was going to be more fantasy. And then at one point, just like, oh, I want to do this. And start drawing out an outfit and just like start putting things together, trying to merge different concepts and themes together. It's kind of like body as well. So, for example, body, you can look up a bunch of references on bodies, but ultimately it's going to be, when you put them together, you grab a bunch of things that appeals to you, you put them together, it's going to be a Frankenstein. Because what appeals to you individually may not work together. So you have to accept trade-offs and make sure they kind of work together in the end, as like a whole. So it's like as ideas get closer together, you need to figure out their interaction if they can just like eventually merge into a single thing. I'm working with a very iterative workflow because I can't do things right the first time. So it's a repetitive process. For example, the body has undergone like over 100 revisions. Same for the avatar. I'm on version, let's see, 1.1.9. This, when I have 1.0, it means it's ready for it's like the concept is done, it's ready for use, but you know, major minor patch, right? The minor would be blender and rigging changes. Patch would be Unity only changes. I try to like organize things that way. Prior to that, I had, let's see, when the avatar is concluded as a cat, I have 12 minor versions. That means 12 rigging and blender changes. That's distinct from each other, and a bunch of patches per minor. That's like Unity changes. And for the previous one, while I was working on just the body, it has 0.5, or was it 59 minors. So minor patches. It just adds up. Just like it's very iterative. I try to do iterative workflow, and it doesn't, for 3D art, it's not really, it doesn't work that well because generally the accepted methodology is, you know, you do it once, it's gonna be finalized, and you just go through each step with completion. It, as a, you know, I'm a developer background, I work at things in just like iterative, slow incremental improvements. Like, how do you apply that to 3D modeling? How do you apply that to texturing and Unity projects? It's a little bit more difficult. There's a lot more caveats.
Can you explain, I guess, from your perspective, why there's an interest in realistic avatar feed that's, you know, humanoid or not? It can be any, you know.
Okay. As crazy as it sounds, it's not my fetish. So for me, the whole thing started off as a friend joined a humorous group called Feet, and you know, as a joke. And another friend of mine, we went to a workout together. He rigged his avatar to have posable fizzbone toes, and he was like slowly breaking them and posing them in different directions. I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that too. And then when I went to start rigging my foot, I realized, oh, if I try to pose it or have a fizzbone on it, it actually shrinks. So I was like, oh, the bone is wrong. And then I started adding bones. I think I could do this better. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew. It just never stopped. But I think for me, feet is a pretty common fetish. It's just a human body part. That's like, some people are grossed out. I personally don't, like, am neutral about it. I think just like it seems harmless to me, so it's just like, people are also very I feel like sexualized. So a lot of fetishes seems to flourish on VRChat. So that's another factor why you might see it more, why it might be more out in the open.
Yeah, how do you feel about it as you test the feet that you like making different things? Do you feel an attachment to your own? Do you use your own foot as a reference even, or how do you test that
Yeah.
stuff?
I do actually. Like by now, I am. Let's say if I go barefoot in VR, if the foot doesn't move, it feels too stiff. It feels like the movement isn't quite there. It feels uh, almost like a puppet. So I prefer a lot of tiny detailed movement to the body. For example, right now I have breathing. Like chest will slowly expand and shrink over time. Same for foot. I want some sort of motion. I want some sort of like substance. The A way that it was described to me around like especially for the ankle is that you want to sell an action. It may not be realistic. You want to sell a form. So when you have your foot straight and your leg is straight, let's say if you want to perform a strong kick, you want to have a follow through. Just like it needs to sell the action, it needs to look substantial, it needs to just kind of like thrust forward. So that goes back into like rigging slightly. I saw like Guilty Gear rigging talks. They described this process really well, and one of the key adjustments I did was where the ankle bone is. So trying to figure out the height. So when you bend your foot, it's like a little bit straighter. It sells the motion a little bit better. So just like does it look aesthetically more pleasing? Does it sell the avatar movement a little bit more convincingly? Let me take off my shoe so you can actually see the location. So for example, it's gonna take a bit because like right now I have heels and boots on. Let me get my I put it over here, just around this area. It's like your typical average location. It's like there's nothing too special about it. So the reason why you would put it there is because now you can tiptoe, you can do other things.
Okay, a little closer so I can see it's like right. You can point to it again.
Okay, it's right over here.
So it's on the bridge, or is it like just to the side a little bit?
Yeah, on the top of your foot.
Okay. I see what you're talking about with collision. It's also kind of tricky.
Yeah, like there are floor collision, but it depends largely on the world. Like the world may have different collider heights, so it's like not something that's easily controllable. You're beholden to certain design constraints. Trying to figure out a way to be independent from the world and where the floor height is also kind of tricky. Some worlds will teleport you to a specified height where there might not be a floor. Yeah, so like the floor collisions, like I'm not 100% happy with it. There's like additional work that could be done, but I don't know what's a good solution with it yet.
What trends and I guess cultures have you observed in Avatar, Feet, and Social VR that you think are notable? Or do you kind of are you more of like the trendsetter? Do you like to watch what different audiences do with via different interests that you've seen?
Recently there was some. Okay, there are different advancements. So, for example, not everybody has this. There are um, there are implementations where some person will have like heels hanging on the balls of your foot, so it's kind of like loosely. It's not constrained to the ankle, so it can hangs around. It sells an effect. Um, there are darkening effects. So when the foot is closer to somebody, things darken, which sells the shadowing effect. There
Huh.
are fizz bone grabbing tech. Basically, essentially, how it works is it moves your hand contact around the body. So, for example, people move it to their mouth so they can grab other people's fizz bone, or they move it to their foot so they can, let's say, grab other people's tail and pick it up. There are limitations to the tech. I don't think you can grab world objects. With world fizz bones, maybe that has changed. I'm hoping that has changed
Mm.
because it's like, let's say, if I'm in my room, I need to pick up something, grab it, pick it up. That would be
Right.
pretty sweet,
Yeah, that would.
right? It's
Oh,
just like intuitive systems. I really like that. That sells like immersion. Um, in terms of foot, I think more convincing animation movement would be more interesting, but I think that's like, I don't know how much time, like everything you can go, there's a lot of things we can go, like you can go deep or you can go wide, right? Like how
mhm.
much time investment you want to put into it. It's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I like the effect, but is it more important than just like tracking well? That's what is most important. You have limited time.
Are there any new frontiers and avatars that you're excited about?
Hmm. I want to play with the fizzbone grabbing tech a bit more. I have a working prototype. I didn't get the chance to add it to my current avatar because there's like things I want to clean up and dig further into. A lot of the work I want to do is workflow related. So making avatar is quite error prone in a lot of times, and you will notice slowdowns over time, right? For example, currently I'm following a pretty unique workflow where everything on the avatar is fully modular. By modular, it means it's either using VRC theory or modular avatar. When you remove the top level hierarchy of the object, all the parameters, all the toggles gets removed as well. So that essentially isolates a lot of the feature. That means bugs within the module won't escape and contaminate the rest of the avatar. Previously, I had everything in one animator, and trying to add or remove things can cause a lot of errors. And that's like one of the issues I run into. I don't think any of the current system lets you be fully modular. So even though all these systems are trying to do non-destructive modular workflow, we still can't have like a 100% modular workflow where everything is in complete isolation. There's still some contamination depending on what you're trying to do. So there are limitations. So those would require development time to fix, like basically people looking into it, trying to figure out what would work, what wouldn't work. Those are the stuff I kind of want to work on more recently, with the, especially with like, after doing this avatar, there's a lot of like tedious things that props up I think I can improve on. The other thing is there's a lot of errors and time waste that can crop up due to human error. So, for example, working on this avatar, I can make an import error and that just breaks everything and then wastes hours. So just simple, small stuff like that that can cause a lot of issues and just like grief.
What are you working on now that you'd like people to know about, and how can our audience follow you for more in the future? I
Oh,
know, yeah.
oh,
I know you're
do
working
you
on
want
this
to?
avatar, but I don't
Yeah.
know if you have any announcements about it yet.
Yeah, I'll be releasing this avatar next week. I've been slowly making, recording, doing all the basic marketing related stuff, but I think it'll be a breath of fresh air once it's finally out. I wouldn't have to hyper focus on just this avatar. I can start branching out, do some of the things that I think needs to be done. So, for example, workflow improvements, just like anything that catches like my fascination, more like rigging related tests, because changing rigging in late stage avatar is quite destructive. It impacts a lot of things because my workflow is completely modular. Changing the body impacts the outfit as well. So it is one of those things where there's multiple layers of weight painting and multiple attachments, and everything plays into each other in like a degree. And any changes to a core thing can just kind of like impact other things, and those create a lot of like time consuming aspects. So being able to hyper focus again on like the body or different things is really appreciated.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, where can people follow you for the announcement thing? And
Yeah. Well, I have a Jinxie store, so you can find me there. I'll occasionally make posts on Twitter or Blue Sky if I have anything interesting to share. It's mostly it.
all right, well, that's awesome. I think I appreciate your time and your advice and all of your things at the show here. I am really excited just to see where you go next with different avatar projects. So, but yeah, thanks again for your time.
Thanks for the interview. It was fun.
Yeah.